Hey there, YouTube, and welcome back to another episode of Lion Collectibles. It's Friday, so you know it's our fight picks and card show. This weekend, we have UFC 215, Lewis vs. Spivak in the UFC Apex Arena in Las Vegas. Before we jump into this card, as always, we need to recap how we did last weekend. We are on the heels of one of the best events this year, UFC 281, Adesanya versus Pereira. What a night of fights. I mean, the whole card was stacked top to bottom. We went into the event 10 and 12 as a record. We did only pick 2 fights of the night. Let's go ahead and just recap how the event went. Starting from the bottom of the card, we had the entrance fight, Dan Hooker versus Claudio Puelles. We did lean towards Puelles. It wasn't an official pick, and Hooker really kind of got the show kicked off right. It was a fight with fireworks, and he, defended the early takedowns from Puelles, the pressure that Puelles was putting on him. Really just used that veteran, gamingness that he has. He landed good strikes and put Puelles in some dangerous positions. Puelles started pulling guard. It started to look like a really rough fight, and then Hooker worked towards the finish in the second round. Really great statement win for him to get back on top. Looking forward to whoever he's going to fight next. The second fight of the night, it was a heartbreaker, and a lot of people thought it might be. Frankie Edgar took on Chris Gutierrez. Gutierrez looked like he was not afraid of any of Frankie's power or anything like that. Started landing leg kicks. Frankie just never really got to do anything. The fight only lasted 2 minutes. Drew Frankie in and then landed one of the prettiest flying knees you're going to see this year. Put Frankie right out. Can't stress this enough. Frankie Edgar is a legend. We are all thankful for everything that he's done in this sport. Gutierrez looks good, and it's on to the next for him. Frankie Edgar, hope you enjoy your retirement. Thank you for all the good fights. And the third co-main event of the night was what I labeled it. You had Michael Chandler take on Dustin Poirier. He leaned and rooted for Chandler, but Poirier really was the star. Chandler turned it into the normal war that he normally does. He came out and blitzed, looked like he might have hurt Poirier early. Poirier, though, the diamond that he is, was able to take all that pressure, and then, it quickly, the whole dynamic of the fight changes. It went from, oh wow, is Chandler going to be able to put him out, to, all the gas is running out here, and Poirier is totally fine. Poirier started hurting Chandler, bloodied his face up, which isn't surprising. Chandler normally gets his face bloodied up. And then eventually worked and got Chandler into a position where he went for a rear naked choke in the third. Great fight for Poirier, keeps him relevant. I think there's awesome fights, on the horizon with him. Maybe he rematches Justin Gaethje. Maybe he fights Daniil Dariush. Lots of opportunities for him in the division. Michael Chandler, it's another setback. I thought he still looked good and put up a good fight, but really needs to start thinking about how he fights, if he should use wrestling more. He's still an exciting guy. Everyone's going to want to watch him fight, so looking forward to always his next fight because they're always bangers. In the co-main event of the night, we got our first pick win. Weili Zhang just did what everyone thought she was going to do. She went out and absolutely candled Carla Esparza. Carla couldn't do anything, really couldn't take her down. I thought had some decent defense on the feet. Zhang just started to hurt her, ended up doing a little bit of wrestling herself and working towards the rear naked choke. She is the new women's strawweight champion, and I just think it's going to be tough for anybody to take that belt from her. Obviously, she does have the losses to Rose. Rose didn't look good against Esparza, even though it was more about inactivity. So I think that's the fight to make next, and I would pick Zhang in that one. I think this is her time, and she's going to hold that belt for a while. And really happy to get the first win of the night. Then in the main event, gosh, what a show these two put on. Israel Adesanya versus Alex Pereira. Pereira looked, in my opinion, early in the fight to be out of sorts. He didn't really know what was going on. He couldn't really time Israel. Israel hurt him with a huge shot at the end of or a couple shots at the end of the first round, which made me think, oh man, we're cruising here. Each round started to go like a lot of Izzy fights do go. What was cool was Pereira was not afraid to strike with him. So you got to see more of Izzy fighting, which was really great. And Izzy looked awesome. He was showing that really poised striking, the ability to see the strikes coming his way and defense them or get out of the way of them. Everything was going our way, and I had the fight 3-1 going into the fifth round. Unfortunately, though, Pereira, man, super strong, and just weathered, all the stuff and slowly, confidently started to narrow in on Izzy. It was 3-1 going into the fifth, and he landed some big shots on Izzy, clipped him bad. Izzy was trying to dance around. I thought Goddard gave Izzy enough time. There was 2 minutes left in the fight. I really don't think he was getting out of it, and they called the stoppage. Huge come from behind victory for Poatan. He is now the middleweight champion of the world after only 4 fights in the UFC, so pretty spectacular run on him. I think Izzy should get an immediate rematch. He's kind of been dominant enough to warrant that, so we'll see what they do. And unfortunately, we couldn't pick up the undefeated. That put us to 1-1. So we're sticking with just 2 fights picks until, again, we can pick up some wins and get even. That puts us to 9-13. So again, we need to make some ground up here. So this weekend we'll only be picking 2 fights. And that was it for UFC 281. Awesome fight card. Let's go ahead and jump into the fights this weekend. UFC Fight Night 215, Lewis versus Spivak. So tomorrow we have UFC Fight Night 215, Lewis vs. Spivak at the Apex Arena in Las Vegas. It's not a card that's, star-studded, that has a ton of names on it. I actually don't have a ton of cards for the fighters here, but let's go ahead and talk through the fights, and I'll show you the cards that I do have. First fight of the night on the main card, it is Jack Della Magdalena versus Danny Roberts. Magdalena is from Australia, and he has a ton of hype behind him. The guy looks really, really well put together for having, I think, 3 or 4 fights in the UFC. Really crisp and smart boxing, and then he can also submit guys on the ground. He has just looked like a serious contender. You have Danny Roberts on the other side, who's had up and down success in the UFC. He's actually been on a pretty long layoff. And has been finished a few times. So this one's pretty straightforward to me. Magdalena is a huge favorite. I think he's a minus 560 right now at the books. I think this has a win written all over him, right? Danny Roberts probably doesn't have much to hurt him or much danger for him on the feet outside of a big punch. His wrestling chops definitely aren't big enough to dominate Magdalena at all. I think Magdalena really does whatever he wants in this fight and probably finishes Danny Roberts. Fortunately, no cards for Magdalena or Danny Roberts. Magdalena probably will be a rookie on the next 2023 season, but nothing for these guys right now. Moving on, we have Andrei Filhau versus Muslim Solidikov. This one is a big toss-up for me. 2 kind of exciting prospects. So Filhau came in red hot. I believe he got 3 finishes in a row before getting put into a short notice fight against Jake Matthews from Australia, another really great prospect. And Matthews really kind of showed, hey, this guy's not exactly a world beater right away. I'm a huge contender. So that kind of put Filhau down on the ground. Filhau has a ton of power. He's aggressive. You haven't really seen much of his bottom game, but his striking is definitely potent and dangerous. He's going to look to push the action in this fight. Muslim Solidikov is also, I believe that his nickname is the Kung Fu Master or something like that. But he's got a lot of great striking and supposedly does have a pretty good ground game. I thought he was winning rounds versus the Leech, Li Jiang, and then ended up kind of falling later in the fight and ended up getting stopped in his last fight. So both guys are looking to rebound from losses. Both of these guys are stand-up strikers. I think Solidikov probably has the advantage on the ground, but they both tend to strike, and so this one should be exciting, and it should have kind of 2 different types of striking styles that are creative. I'm not really quite sure how this one was going to go. If I had to lean, I'd probably lean with Solidikov just because I think he has a little bit more experience and he can take the ground. I think that's kind of the big difference maker, is if he was to impose wrestling, he might be able to get the win, but not sure if he's going to do that. So we're sticking away from this fight. No fight pick here. I would lean towards Solidikov. No cards for either of these guys, unfortunately. They just haven't made the set yet. Then we move on to the heavyweight division, where we have Chase Sermon versus Waldo Acosta-Cortez. Waldo Acosta, he actually won a few weeks ago, I believe in mid-October. He picked up a decision win against Jared Vandervera. Chase Sermon was actually supposed to fight 2 weekends ago against Josh Parisian. It got canceled last minute and moved to this fight. Parisian had to pull out, and Waldo Acosta is filling in. I had talked a little bit about Chase Sermon. I think he's a heavyweight punching bag. He's lost quite a few fights in the UFC. He's on his second stint. He's a smaller heavyweight, not super agile though. And I think ultimately, if he can't hurt somebody early or weather a storm and have a heavyweight get exhausted, he doesn't have much of a chance. Waldo Acosta came off the Contender Series, picked up that win against Jared Vandervera, looked to have good boxing, good stamina for a heavier guy, and some power. And so this one, again, another straightforward one for me. It's Waldo Acosta, probably going to do whatever he wants to chase Sermon. I would look for him to hurt Sermon and finish him, in the first or second round. That's where I think this fight's going to go. Again, two more fighters that I don't have any cards of. Chase Sermon just frankly probably wasn't good enough to be on the roster for these fight cards, and Waldo's young, so hopefully we'll get some cards for Waldo in the future, because I think he could be a contender in this heavyweight division that is hurting for contenders. In the co-main event of the night, we have a light heavyweight scrap between Ian Cuitlaba versus Kennedy Nzechukwu. Say that 5 times fast. Kennedy is a striker and a guy that's kind of impressed people a little bit. There's some hype coming behind him, but he hasn't been the most consistent of the guys. He's kind of alternated losses up and down. Sometimes he overcomes expectations and looks great, but then sometimes he looks kind of sloppy, loses to guys that he should beat. But he's got some hype, and he's a really, really tall guy. Ian Cuitlaba is a big-time striker. He's probably one of the most aggressive light heavyweights that we've seen in a long time. A lot of theatrics at weigh-ins, yelling in guys' face. He's just super, super intense and has a lot of striking. Big thing about Cuitlaba is he gasses a lot, right? So that guy either goes out and blasts somebody and knocks him out, or tends to have some trouble, gas a little bit, and then get finished. I'm counting on that. I think Nzechukwu is going to be able to weather any kind of big bomb that Cuitlaba is going to bring at him. I think he's going to try to use distance and frustrate the smaller Cuitlaba, and I would think he's probably going to get a finish over Cuitlaba, like most guys do when Cuitlaba doesn't KO them. It's not an official pick, just lean in there. Don't have a lot of cards of either of these guys, or none of Cuitlaba. I do have this one 2022 Prism of Kennedy Nzechukwu. I'm not sure I'm saying that correct. It's a horizontal card. These Prisms are always like top notch. They just feel really cool, super glossy. It's a rookie card of his, so something I can hold on to if he can go on a run. I think Nzechukwu probably gets the win this weekend. And last but not least, we have our main event in the heavyweight division. It is Derek the Black Beast Lewis versus Sergey Spivak. Derek Lewis is a fan favorite. People love him. He's got some of the greatest post-fight one-liners that you'll hear out there. My balls are hot. I want to beat up Daniel Cormier for disrespecting the Popeye's chicken. Like, just funny stuff. The guy can bang with the best of them. He is widely regarded as one of the hardest punchers in the UFC. And he's had a great career. Like, he challenged Daniel Cormier for the title a few years back. Picked up some big wins and finished wins, but that kind of is his living and dying by the sword for him. If he doesn't knock somebody out, then typically he gets finished as time goes on. He's always working to improve his gas tank and has decent gas, but not as good as some of the other guys in the division. I love this guy and I love rooting for him, but he is facing Sergey Spivak. Sergey Spivak, big guy for the division. He's on I believe a 3 or 4 fight win streak, kind of flying under the radar, and is a kind of a dark horse of the division. He's got great takedowns and heavy top control. His boxing's getting better, and some of it's defensive to get to the ground, but really, this is a tough one for Derek Lewis. I just don't know how he kind of weathers the storm and defends if he does get taken down. I think Spivak and most of the heavyweights in the division just see Derek Lewis for who he is. Dance away from the power, land some body kicks and some leg kicks. Don't let him hit you with that big shot. Wear him out, and you can probably work to the finish. Derek Lewis has been finished in his last 2 fights. One by KO to Tui Taivasa. So I just, unfortunately, even though I love Derek Lewis and I'll probably be rooting for him, kind of hard for me to back him in this fight. I think Sergey Spivak, somehow, weathers any kind of big bombs that Lewis has, probably works towards some ground and pound, but I would absolutely love to see Derek Lewis get back on top with a big knockout. Only card I have of these two, I don't believe Spivak's on a card yet, but I do have a base Derek Lewis Chronicles from 2021, the Black Beast. He's just so exciting to watch. Anytime he goes out there, he's going to bang. And he'll always be a fan favorite and a guy that I like to cheer for. But unfortunately, he's probably taking the loss this weekend. Okay, so remember, we're going to pick 2 fights on this fight card. Right now we're at 9-13. If we were to get 2 wins, we'd be at 11-13 and only 2 away from 500. So, first pick of the weekend, I'm going to go with the easy one. Jack Della Maddalena. He's a huge favorite against Danny Roberts. I think, again, he is outmatches Danny Roberts in every aspect of the fight. And I think he gets a finish. Second fight of pick of the night, I wanted to go, and normally we'll try to go with the main event, but I don't want to vote against my bad Derek Lewis. I think Spivak's probably going to win, but I don't want to put that on our pick. I think what I'm going to go with is Waldo Cortez Acosta. To me, that's another really straightforward one. He should beat the living hell out of Chase Sermon. So those are our 2 picks. Jack Della Maddalena to win over Danny Roberts. And then we're going to pick Waldo Acosta Cortez to beat Chase Sermon. Other leans, we are going to lean with Spivak over Derek Lewis, but be rooting for Derek Lewis. We would lean towards Muslim Salidikov over Andre Filal, and then Kennedy Nzechukwu versus Ian Kudalaba. So that's our leans and our 2 fight picks for the card. Hope you guys enjoy the weekend. Let me know if you agree with these fight picks or have something different, and if you like the channel, don't forget to subscribe. See you guys on the next one.